Greetings, YouTube. Recently, I watched the Disney Atlantis movie again. I think for the first time since I'd seen it in the theaters, and I watched it with the commentary track. Um, and it was the commentary track was quite good. They had three guys on there, and they're all very intimately involved in this, producers and directors, two directors, and very well done as far as the commentary goes. And I realized I had forgotten how much I enjoyed the look of Atlantis, the vehicles, the very Jules Verne kind of vibe going on there, even though it was set in 1914. I personally would have said it earlier than that. I think I would have said it in the 1890s, 18 or the turn of the century, but that's just me. 1914 puts it a little too close to the real world for me. It's kind of like some of the pulp fiction that came out that dealt with, some mystical things like the Indiana Jones. Some of that was pushing the envelope to me because it gets too close to the truly scientific age. But we've got these intrepid explorers. They're going to go find Atlantis. How they know Atlantis is where it is a bit of a mystery to me, but they do. And the main character, Milo Thatch, is the guy who came up with all the hard numbers that says this is where we need to go. And he's right. And along their adventure, and they meet an improbable monster which couldn't exist. That's beside the point. Most of their technology wouldn't function the way it did, but we're going to let that slide. And then they finally find the lost city of Atlantis in this huge cavern beneath the earth, and it's this plateau with water falling off of the edges, which at first I was like, wow, that water has to come from somewhere. And I guess the idea being is that it condenses along the top of the cavern, then it falls in rain, but there's not a constant stream of rain, which is what there would have to be to keep, we're going to have to let that one slide too. Throw out the old hand wavium at it. And one of the interesting things about the Atlanteans themselves is that some of the Atlanteans, obviously not all of them, some of the Atlanteans were actually present 8,000 years in the past when the cataclysmic event took place and buried their city beneath not only the ocean, but the earth. In fact, their king is still there. He's blind now, but he's still a king. And the main protagonist of the Atlanteans is his daughter, the princess. And they age very slowly because over the course of 8,000 years, she's about 20, 25, something like that. And the birth rate must be incredibly slow because there are children in this world. There aren't many of them. And they haven't overpopulated this little plateau. It's not a very big plateau. I mean, not very big at all. I mean, like maybe 10 miles wide, if that. Probably smaller than that. Probably like a couple miles wide. This is not a very large plateau. When I used Atlantis in a recent gaming video, I made my Atlantis 1,000 miles wide because I really want to go for the large island minor continent vibe. And the people that live there they're fishermen and farmers, and they're living essentially a Stone Age life. And along comes Milo and can read their language, and none of the Atlanteans can, and knows how to work their machines, their magical, wonderful machines, that none of them can. Even though there were Atlanteans alive at the time of the cataclysm. Now, yes, I know that this film gets a lot of props from people because it has a nice, diverse cast. There's people of color here in positions of power with educations and things like that, and that's awesome. It really is. And that the main female protagonist, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, is not just some pushover. She's not saved by the male lead, and is often seen as being far more capable than he is, which is, again, is awesome. But there's a really strong white guy savior vibe in this film. They were here for 8,000 years, but so for some reason, they just became literate. Now, the guys doing the commentary said, well, the Egyptians forgot how to read hieroglyphics. You are correct. But hieroglyphics evolved into a pictogram language, which eventually evolved into a script language, and was eventually supplanted by other languages, for example, Arabic. So the people living in Egypt didn't spontaneously become ignorant and remain ignorant for the next 3,000 years. They are not ignorant today. They are not illiterate. And these people created an entire culture of total illiterates while some of them used to be able to read. And the machines, they're shown using these wonderful flying machines, all these cool fish, vibes and stuff. My wife's got a little figure in the bathroom. She thought it was really cool. Actually, she may have two of them. She really likes the look of this film as well. She's a real thing for fish. And these are cool flying vehicles. You get them on. You have a little crystal. Everybody in the society wears a little crystal. You use that to power the device. It flies for you. You can fire blasting energy out of it and everything. It's really awesome. And yet everyone forgets how to use it until Milo shows up. This is why I have a problem with the Disney Atlantis film. Because it's the primitive, ignorant, illiterate savages that have to be saved by the white savior. So all the other good that this film has done is tossed out the window for me because of this. It makes absolutely no sense to me. None whatsoever. And I am baffled why anybody who is positive about this film has not at least talked about this. I have never heard anybody discuss the fact that there is such a strong white savior vibe in this film. It's terrible. Even if they were to spontaneously become illiterate, they had 8,000 years to figure out how to read their own language. Milo figured it out, and he's what, 25 in the film? And he didn't even have direct access to the language itself. He had to infer it from all of these other places. And it's supposed to be some language that is the foundation of all spoken languages. And they just forgot how to use the vehicles. The vehicles they were flying as their island was being destroyed and shoved beneath the ocean. And they just, we don't know how to use them anymore. Even though the power source to run them is on their necks. They wear them. Just like I wear something. But nope, don't know how to use them anymore. White guy does, though. It bugged me the first time I saw it, all those many years ago, and it bugs me now. And more now, probably, because to use the current vernacular, I'm far more woke now than I ever was then. It makes no sense that these Atlanteans would forget how to use their own technology and forget how to read their own language. And you're going to say, well, the king was blind and he was the oldest and wisest. Right. All he's got to do, he said, hey, bud, you know that thing around your neck? Stick it in a little hole in there and see what happens. He couldn't say that? It's bullshit. And it's sloppy, lazy writing to make this something that Milo discovers. Because they need these people to be primitive savages for their particular narrative. It's just friggin' sad. So, tell me what you think about the Atlantis film. Did you catch this? Does it bother you? Or is it something that you can just pull out the hand-wavium and not worry about? Because this kind of gross bigotry and cultural erasure is not something that I can tolerate.